Going live. You're live.
Welcome, everybody. This is our 10th anniversary. Colead Team, first time ever doing YouTube live stream. So, hey, we'll just wing it. That's what we do best, right? So, we have Angela Johnson here. She started this sucker 10 years ago.
10 years ago and 1 month.
So, actually, we're at 10 years and 1 month.
Yeah.
So that means we've had 261 consecutive payrolls.
Okay.
Is that right?
Sure.
Absolutely. I would like to ask you questions, as I'm sure the folks online might. And we also have a bowl of questions that we have to go through here today. But I joined you 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We actually started working, it was about 8 months before I joined. I don't remember the exact time frame.
I don't know, it was about a year. You were working for another organization and you were moonlighting for me.
That's right.
You were doing contract training, helping me out here and there.
And then I ended up joining you.
Because I told you your job was getting in the way.
And I said, you're the only one that could solve that problem. And so she, crazily and luckily for me, extended me a partnership. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. First employee.
Yeah.
Did you let the kids at home know that we're cocktailing?
Oh yeah, sorry, we have cocktails. Hope you're okay with it. But she's like, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? And of course, I don't really think about things until right before. But I did want to ask you, did you have any thoughts or have any plans to open a business?
No, none whatsoever.
So take me through how this happened.
I consider myself a broken corporate employee.
Hear, hear.
I was pretty dissatisfied with how some of the opportunities were coming to me and, people that I was contracting through. And I'm like, if I'm doing all the work to get myself my own engagements and, vetting my own client work or getting some word of mouth or, referrals and demand, it's like, I can just do this for myself. So literally when I started the organization, it was just to have an entity to send invoices from. It was just me. There was no, evil plan to
Right.
start a company and to have employees.
You're just working.
Just working. And so then as some of those opportunities grew and I needed help, I brought in some contractors, so certainly no aspiration of hiring people as employees, and saying, can you help me out for 6 months here? Can you help me out, as a subcontractor passing through my organization? And so 3-4 years in, it was 4 years in when I extended the employment opportunity to you. You were actually the first full-time employee long before you became, shareholder or any kind of partner. And so everybody else had been just working on short-term contracts. And so once you came on board and once we got that job of yours out of the way, that's when things really started to pick up and grow. We started to grow the team.
So what would you say top 3 rewarding things? 10 years, if you were to name off 3 things, what are 3 things that you say would be most rewarding?
The most rewarding thing is always helping our graduates. I love the people that we help. I just got a text from somebody that I've been mentoring, from, hey, I'm not sure about this Scrum thing. I think I want to be a Scrum Master. She's got natural people skills. Hey, Sarah. Got a text from her this afternoon that she got a job. And that's one of the most rewarding things to me is helping people do that. Secondly, freedom. And I was listening to the radio the other morning and people calling in saying, we're going to start our own business. And I'm screaming at the radio going, don't. And when the DJ asked them why, they said freedom. And the freedoms that person was describing, I'm like, oh, you're in for a rude awakening. There is no freedom in terms of, I can leave at 1 PM or I can work what I want. No. It's a different kind of freedom. It's a freedom to say no to some of the work that smells bad, that we've said no to. It's the freedom to walk away from work that smells bad, that just isn't the right fit. It's those kinds of freedoms. So it's a different kind of freedom.
Sarah says thanks.
Oh, good.
Right here, Sarah. That was 2. You got a 3rd.
And working with you, no kid. Working with our team. Because it's really, really hard to say to people, well, here's how you use Scrum. Here's how you do teamwork if you're an army of one. I don't know how that works. And I'm not trying to hate on anybody who's an army of one doing this. I'm just saying for me, because you asked me what my top 3 were. And it's really being able to walk that talk. To have that credibility.
Absolutely. And as far as teams go, every team has its challenges. When I'm training, I say it. You think a bunch of people who supposedly know a lot about Scrum and train it, we'd be really good at Scrum. Nope. Scrum does a really good job of showing us where we get better, and it's a humble pie. It's a slice you take. And so well, thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that. So 3 things that were positive. What would you say is, I'm just going to let you go on to the biggest challenges for 10-year anniversary. If you look back over 10 years, what were the 2 biggest challenges you faced?
In what aspect? In running a company?
Yes, in running the company. To get to 10 years, what were the biggest challenges, or what would you say the 2 biggest challenges you faced?
Honestly, this school of hard knocks about running a company, because people think, oh, you need to have an MBA. I got a master's degree. Guess how much I learned about running a company from my master's degree?
0.
I learned the most by doing. So the school of hard knocks. And then secondly, people not believing me that there's a company. I think I had spent so much time working as a project manager, and now I'm a recovered project manager, that when I talked about having a business and, calling on some of these companies or working with some of these organizations, it was almost insulting.
Angela who? I'm sorry.
Not Angela who, but like one of my friends who has been a longtime IT recruiter in this community, who shall remain nameless to protect the guilty, would say, but who are you billing through? My company. Yeah, but who are you billing through? Like who sold this gig? Who's writing up the paperwork? I am.
Yep.
My company.
Yep.
They just didn't believe me.
Lost you.
And it was just, like I said, it got almost insulted. So that would probably be the 2 challenges.
I'm going to check with our DJ, or are you a VJ? I don't know what you are. Do we have any questions coming in just yet? If not,
Or is he going to the bowl?
are we going to the bowl? Okay.
Going
to the bowl.
The bowl.
Let's go to the bowl.
Let's leave it up to fate. I think we should go all Andy Cohen on this, like the Bravo Clubhouse, and every time somebody says Agile or Scrum in this conversation, we take a drink. But the kids at home have to drink.
All right, so we're not failing for new reasons.
We're not failing for new reasons. So when you look at Agile and Scrum over the last 10 years, now think about this. Think about 10 years ago when you were working as a Scrum Master before I, talked to you to join this thing. The reasons we heard 10 years ago about why Scrum doesn't work, why Agile doesn't work, they're exactly the same as they are today. Exactly the same.
Before pre-COVID, I was hitting the road a hell of a lot harder than I thought I would. And, the plus of that is, and I say it, I've been east, west, north, south, and it doesn't matter where I go. It's the same reasons everywhere. Nobody has a unique problem. And 9 times out of 10, the problems they're facing have nothing to do with Scrum or what they're doing. It's who they're doing it with. It's people. And that falls right there in my mind. It's just the same thing.
Well, and when I say we're not failing for no reasons, they say, well, we tried Scrum, it didn't work. Well, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because it works. Why didn't it work for you?
Exactly.
Let's talk about that. So you have an empowered product owner, and you have a Scrum Master who is a neutral, objective servant leader. You have a cross-functional, dedicated team of 3 to 9 people. No, we didn't do any of that. We have a Scrum Master / product owner / project manager, and the team is on 4 Scrum projects. Well, none of that, what you just said, has anything to do with Scrum. So you really didn't try Scrum,
Yep.
right?
And it's not that Scrum's the goal. What we're learning about Scrum is that framework allows us to see what we need to get better at. I say it in my classes that the first sign this thing is working is that people might even say it seems worse than it was before. If people don't know that, they blame them.
Mhm.
And it's like, no customer looks at the price tag of whatever they're buying for whatever you make. It says, was this made with a Scrum team or was this made with somebody that they don't care? We don't care. So that's my thing. Is like, we get so particular about right or wrong, or whether you're doing it right or wrong. And at the end, it's like, are you doing the right things for your company, for your customer? Okay, right. But if you're going to do Scrum, it's pretty clear. Here's the pillars. Don't mess with the pillars.
Well, and I started being really overt with clients and with students that it's structural change and it's behavioral change. It means doing the work differently. I mean, if we were allowed to go into US Bank Stadium and watch a Vikings game, who knows? I always say, where's the pitcher gonna stand? Where's the pitcher mound? And then people start laughing and go, there's no pitcher. There's no pitcher in football. Hey, there's no project manager in Scrum either. Right. So it's like, well, it gets back to why do you want to do this? So in 10 years, it feels a little like Groundhog Day. It feels a little like beating my head against the wall because people are saying the same things they did 10 years ago. So it kind of comes down to the organization either wants to change or it doesn't want to change.
Most don't. Most of my experience don't want to change.
Then why would they waste all that money?
I don't know.
You mentioned COVID, and it's like, oh my gosh, I could save the organization a ton of money if you just actually did project management.
Mm-hmm.
Just skip all this scrummy stuff and all this agile nonsense. But when they say, well, we're going to do both, why would you do the same work two different ways? That doesn't make any sense. Do you get two paychecks?
And it confuses people.
It confuses the crap out of people. So no, we're not failing for new reasons.
Not new reasons. All right. I'm going to go to the bowl again, unless I hear otherwise.
Going to the bowl.
Ooh. What gets us out of bed in the morning? Is that my kids bugging me or my dog?
Well, this morning you said you went for a run, and I said, why? Was something chasing you?
No, the reason I started running again. But I think it goes back to what you said, helping people. There's something about seeing growth in others. And growth doesn't come from comfort. Seeing others really, whether it be on their own choice to decide to work this way and better themselves, or helping where they're at, doing the best they can, because there's only so much you can do in your situations. But to see somebody grow and to help people reach either the next best version of themselves is another way to say it. But that's what I like. I like seeing growth. But most people know growth comes from something.
Mm-hmm. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning is helping people actually change.
Right. Which can get frustrating because, I'm sure there's a lot of physical trainers out there, coaches out there that people sign up at the beginning of the year saying they want to work out, they want to get in shape, and how many of that actually falls off. And I can sympathize with how it must be frustrating, but it's not those, it's that one or two people that you can find, or they're in your class or that client that you're at. You can just see it. You can see that a light bulb has been turned on. You can see the awakening is what I call it, because I was shutting down to work, and I was disengaging before I learned about Scrum. And Scrum, thankfully, was introduced to me at a time that woke me back up to work, to where I wasn't, looking at the calendar for the next vacation on a Monday.
Well, I think we're lucky because we're able to offer the advanced Scrum Master and the Certified Scrum Professional. So staying kind of focused like we have been with our constituents and our graduates, it's been really fun to see somebody go through the progression from Scrum Master to Advanced Scrum Master to Certified Scrum Professional. And one of them that I was talking to last week as she was wrapping up the post-course work that's required to finish the Certified Scrum Professional, she said, as long as I got you, I want to ask you, it's getting into this, what gets you out of bed in the morning kind of question. She's like, how do you get to the position, where you're at? I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, well, I've heard you talk about walking away from clients, right? Or stepping away from work or being in a position to pick and choose. She's like, how does that happen? And I'm like, why do you ask? Because we're in two very different places, right?
Yep.
We work, for ourselves. We have the great fortune to run this company, and she's an employee of a large organization. So I said, why do you ask? And she said, I think if I stay where I'm at, it's gonna make me a worse Scrum Master. So what she was saying is, I'm not growing anymore. And hey, growing in the certified Scrum professional, I'm seeing that as a coach, I may have taken these folks as far as they're willing to let me take them.
And that's fair. Not every coach is going to take people to the moon.
Right.
Some coaches are really good at getting people going. Some are really good at taking teams to that next level. I've never touted myself as a coach. I can take them from the ground. I'm a stage coach, I believe. Did I say I'm a stage coach? That sounds really weird. But anyway.
I don't see any verses.
Me either. But the point of that is that people can sense when they're stalling. People can feel it. They can feel the stagnation, and I can feel the backslide. When I was a consultant, sometimes you'd be on these long engagements, and it was just you become part of the lexicon, part of that culture. You're just there, and you just kind of feel yourself pull into that. So it's a hard magnet sometimes to get away from. We have an outside question.
Oh.
What John Cusack movie quote best applies to our CLT journey?
Did that question come from Rand?
No.
Oh.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. That is a heck of a question. And it's ironic because
he was just quoting Grosse Pointe
I
Blank
was,
today.
but I didn't really think of it in the context of what best describes our journey. Well, actually it does, because I thought I'd open it up with in Grosse Pointe Blank. John Cusack's character obviously freaks out and on prom night leaves Minnie Driver on her steps waiting for him for prom night. He goes off and gets into special forces and then becomes an assassin. He's got a midlife crisis and he comes home. It's a dark comedy, folks. But he comes home and he runs into Jeremy Piven's, his buddy. And he's like, hey, how's it going? How's it going? They're driving. And Piven's just out of nowhere just goes, 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. Cusack's like, I freaked out, joined the army, had a certain moral flexibility, became a special, whatever. So I'm going with that one. 10 years.
See, and then I'm going to go all serendipity.
Okay.
Again, John Cusack and Jeremy Piven. And when Jeremy's trying to compliment him on the way he's behaving, he's like, you're a jackass. He's like, and I needed this. I needed this.
The movie Serendipity?
Yeah.
Is Kate Beckinsale?
Yeah. Don't start talking about Kate Beckinsale. Our producer will.
Producers,
Yeah.
thumbs up now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you. You're a jackass.
You're a jackass. Well, and then towards the end of the movie, when Jeremy Piven's character is trying to rekindle things with his wife so she doesn't leave him, John Cusack says, because he's like, how do I look? How do I look? John says, like a jackass.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
I know, right?
All right.
Are you going to the bowl? Am I going to the bowl?
Maybe you should go.
You
You go to
should
the
go to the bowl. I'm going to go to the bowl. That means you have to answer first.
I will.
Right. Shit. History of Colead. Didn't we already talk about that?
Can we do that?
Did we already do that?
Angela freaked out.
Angela freaked out.
Broken corporate employee. Decided to start her own business just so she could build.
Well, one thing that we could talk about is where we're sitting right now. Because
Yeah, we could.
we have a physical space and we never
We should
did.
turn the camera on and show man.
We were always a virtual organization.
So, about a year and a half ago, we got this, it's almost 2 years, we got this harebrained idea. Being trainers and coaches and having training partners and trying to put up our own classes. Sometimes you're at the mercy of where you're at and you can show up and there's maybe not the best equipment or it's not clear who's there. So you have one of everything in the bag.
Or the place smells.
Or the place smells.
There's
So
no Wi-Fi.
ours was updated last in 1970, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with 1970. But we decided, what if we had our own space? What if we had our own space that we could hold our classes? What if we had spaces that were designed by trainers, for participants in mind? And also, what if we're not using our rooms? Somebody wants to rent a room or have some office space. We decided to do that. So we ventured into the physical space, real estate, and we
At
had
the perfect time.
at the perfect time, 1 year before COVID. I mean, great idea, right? So, hey, Bob Sarney, how are you? The 8,800 square foot conference center, free parking, covered parking, inclusive park pricing, on-site collaboration, coordination.
That got to sit closed for the last 3 months.
Yes. So West End Conference Center is right at 394 and 100 in the West End Conference. If you listen to K-Fan or KWB,
They're right upstairs.
we see Mark Rose.
We see Mark Rose in every
I
morning.
got to talk to Ben Liebert the other day. That was pretty cool. But yeah, they're right upstairs, so we're right in there, same building. And so, great location, but as Angela pointed out, I think the last in-person class I was training was the heaviest.
It was, yeah.
So that would have been March 14th. March 14th was the
Yes.
second day, because there was 3 people in that class. The company had called them at the end of that day to say, you're supposed to stay home. And so they let me know. And ironically, when we went virtual, which you helped us pivot really fast there, those same 3 people came for day 2 of my first virtual. And so we've been virtual ever since, which has been great because now we're in a space that has, fiber, right? And
For Wi-Fi.
For Wi-Fi.
He means Wi-Fi.
a lot of fiber too. We have granola, you name it. But we sort of dedicated line. We also have hospital. So we have trip redundancy on our Wi-Fi. And, I can jump into a huddle room so Angela and I can both be training. We're not taking over our meeting room. But it's been a ride, a crazy ride. And surprisingly, with Zoom and the breakout rooms, that really helps kind of what we do in the real. And we didn't get real complicated on our tools because it can really distract and also make it hard to keep track of stuff. But we can run our own.
But the cool thing is, because you mentioned COVID, and we are recording this, so
COVID's not cool.
maybe there'll be someday when people are like, "What's COVID?" But in reopening, under Governor Walz's phased approach, we started to have some small events here. Craig Larman is coming in July, which we're super excited about.
Oh, we should play our video. We had to do the video. Craig Larman wanted us to make a video to show how safe we were. So as Agile teams do, we made a quick and dirty to-do list, and we shot it in like an afternoon.
That's not the most important part about the Agile team doing it. The most important part was that I was involved. I was.
She got out of all of it.
I was locked away.
I had to dress up in my hazmat suit and mask. So he's like, Larman's like, can you make it kind of like the BBC where they had professionally paid actors doing these funny little clips before you board a plane? Like, yeah, sure.
Sure.
We can do that.
But led by a product owner who had a very clear vision and goal, which is not me, which is Terry.
Yep.
And the boss, which is me, locked away
Yep.
from everybody.
It went
did
so much
happen.
faster. It went so much faster.
In 1 day. So
You
that's
get so much done when she's not involved.
that's the big piece of the history I think that is relevant is the addition of our bricks and mortar space. And I think coming out of COVID, there's so many people that are letting their bricks and mortar space go and saying, we will just be virtual to save money. Well, people inevitably are gonna need places for face-to-face or
West
even
End
just
Conference Center's at the top of your list.
the single person, like getting out of the house, getting away from their kids,
Yeah.
and use one of the huddle rooms.
This guy that comes in here occasionally just gets away. And in reference to that video, it's on our YouTube channel. So if you go to Collaborative Leadership Team channel, you'll see our CDC compliant approved.
COVID response.
We even have Chase, their little guy. Well, he's not so little anymore.
He's 8.
He's 8. That's what's crazy because when I started, he was a baby. It's nuts when you think of it. Like 7 years goes by in a blink of an eye, or 10 years goes by, and then you look at like your kids when you started. It's like Madeline was like, God, Madeline was still in high school.
I know, we were talking about how your father-in-law and I always got in trouble at every one of your family gatherings for talking business. And we engaged him to come and talk to us about business yesterday. So I said, nobody can get mad at me and Doug for talking about business all day. And Madeline's like, when did you and Doug talk business? And I said, at your graduation. And she goes, college? And I'm like, oh my God, that was your high school graduation. That was a long time ago. But it seems like it was yesterday.
The years just fold together. Just crazy.
All right, you going to the bowl?
All right.
Does Rand have a question from the chat line?
All right, here we go. Oh, this one. I just got a feedback from a student, very kind feedback, and she talked to us. She's like, mindset versus mechanics. She liked how we focus on mindset and connect the dots to mechanics. So, why don't you talk about that?
One of the people who attended a CSM virtually, because we were on Zoom, he said, oh my gosh, loved the mindset versus mechanics podcast that you and Christian put out. And I was like,
That's what, 3 years ago?
no, it wasn't 3 years ago, but I was like, well, first of all, thank you for listening, because I never know if anybody listens to that stuff. But he's like, it changed everything for me, you know, with Agile and with Scrum. And I'm like, wow, awesome. So on the flip side of that, last week I had a interesting CSM where a person took an opportunity to very passively aggressively rip me in the post-class email, rather than just actually, you know, tell me. And they missed the whole point.
Yeah.
And I say several times during the class, if you want to learn about the mechanics, literally open the free Scrum guide and read it.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay a dime.
Yep.
It's free. There's videos on YouTube. There's a ton of stuff about the mechanics. The mindset is the more important thing.
Yep.
Because the mechanics, without the mindset, are never going to produce the results.
I always talk about how adults, we're social learners. So I came out of college, 95, and knew nothing other than projects. That's all I did. It's not good or bad, just do it. And then most people that come to our classes, and it's starting to get less now, but most of them have some sort of project experience. So adults take whatever they're learning new, they go back over the course of their life and they try to map it to what they used to do. If they don't have that mindset, they'll just snap right over the top of what they used to do. And it's not out of malice. It's not like they're trying to defy us. It's just like, well, this kind of is like, well, okay, so let me, but mindset is too vague. It's like, you know, fly casual, should we? I don't know, fly casual, right? Return to the jet, sorry. But just be agile. Go be agile. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. So you gotta have both mindset first, though, because then the mechanics will fall in place the right way.
Well, and I always warn people, right? Sorry, you got that trainer, right? You got that trainer who's going to explain the why and who's going to, you know, connect the dots.
You know, it goes back to what Denny talked about when executives from America were going with Toyota, trying to figure out how Toyota was kicking their behinds in manufacturing. How are you doing this, mechanics? How are you doing this? And the execs were trying to say, you got to understand why. You got to, no, just tell me how. Tell me how.
Just copy Spotify.
Yeah. And I heard Snowden say this the other day. He's like, you cannot. He said he was going to throttle the next person that brought up Spotify to him. Of course, he's Welsh.
It sounds better when he says it.
Well, the Welsh, if you ask any, I worked with a person he was Welsh, and he was 7 foot tall, and he said, just so you know, Welsh consider themselves to be a superior race to all of the humans. So from that standpoint, just take that. But he was saying that, you know, you cannot take somebody else's destination. You got to take your own journey. And that's the same, you know, how many of us are parents? You don't have to parent today. And have you met another parent where you would drop everything you learned with your kid and then copy that parent because that's the best example?
I would say that I am getting my Parent of the Year nomination 8th year in a
I
row.
get that award too. I just never get the award. I don't. Does it come to the man?
Yeah, there's a club.
Anything.
Yeah, I did that.
I win it constantly.
So the disgruntled student from last week, of course, that's the one that always sticks with you, right?
Yeah, the
But it's
one
like-
person that gets mad at you.
It's like, where were you? like were you asleep the whole first 4 hours? Because all these other, and the other ones are the ones that we get out of bed in the morning for, right? The ones where like, oh my gosh, had an aha moment, had the light bulb go on, that makes so much more sense. And then, you know, the one that's just like, you just didn't tell me the 3 questions from the daily Scrum. Well, you can read that. It's page 12
There you go.
in the Scrum guide. I'll even tell you which page number it is, and it's free. You know?
So we got a question on Mindset Podcast. Which one? It's episode 6.
Oh,
We have 6 episodes. Wow, it's impressive. Obviously, I'm very involved. I just got a flying bird from our producer. That's awesome.
What kind was it?
It was,
Was
it was singular
sparrow?
nature. I think he was telling me I was number 1.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, in my advanced CSM, we got into a discussion about facilitation techniques, coming to consensus, and I'm like, I don't care if you use rock, paper, scissors, I don't care if you use, Roman voting, and somebody brought up fist of 5, and I'm like, okay, let me tell you why I don't use fist of 5.
Or you have to start with the European counting of 1.
Well, what? Come on.
Because you know where 1's going to start.
There's too many things, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, there was a particular team that I used to coach who took great pride in using a certain finger when it was 1. And then it's like, okay, now we have to have another ground rule about that ground rule. And it's like, oh, dear God.
Layers.
Keep
Layers.
it simple.
On layers.
Besides, you didn't want swears today. You said no swears.
I tried not to.
And so,
I think I've already had one.
I know, so.
This is what happens if you drink. Wait a minute, it's your turn.
Oh, is it mine?
I did the mindset.
Okay. Oh, I think I know which one this is. I think it's not one of the letters. Scaling wars.
Does anybody
It's
else
hard.
think of the thing from Arthur when you say scaling? I just go to Christopher Cross every time. Sailing. 16.
It's time for scaling wars. So 10 years ago, children,
10 years.
we didn't say scaling.
No.
We didn't say scale. It was none of that nonsense. And it doesn't mean that, this is something new. This is something that didn't exist. That's not true. Large scale Scrum has been around almost as long as Scrum teams have been. And so it's not that it wasn't there. It's just that somebody decides we're not making any money on this Agile thing, right? We gotta stick the word Agile on stuff and it'll sell. Agile sells. And so all of a sudden, out of the blue, like almost overnight, we get the word scaling appearing everywhere. I don't even know. And
it goes back to what problem you're trying to solve, Scrum or Agile. What's not working about? What isn't working right now? And is it the way you're working or not? Same thing with scaling. What's not working? What do you need to work? So the question that I always, the story I like to tell is so during the Minneapolis Scrum Gathering, right? The famous blizzard of odd.
2018.
I can say odd because there's a 0.
It's 2018.
Odd 18. There's an odd problem, so I say odd. Yeah, so question goes up. Who in here is on the Scrum team? All the hands go up. Everybody in this room. Who was a Scrum team is able to actually produce an increment?
Working product.
And half the hands go down. And the response was. And then who here is in a scaled environment? Half of the hands go down. No, half of them. In your scaled environment, whose company can get product out the door to their customer? All the hands went down. He's like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, if you're not getting value at the end of the sprint, or at least able to show why you have impediments or rocks in your system that you've got to get out of the way, you need help. And here's where we're at on those. It's all for naught. It's all a bunch of gymnastics.
Well, I prefer if you're doing, crappy Scrum now, right? If you don't understand Scrum 101, you're just going to scale crap.
Yep.
It's just organizational diarrhea. It's not going to solve anything.
All right, we went to potty talk. Here we go.
We are now on potty talk. Here to the year, 8 years in a row.
40 minutes.
But seriously, it's like, there's this idea of if I took a jar of jelly beans and I slapped the word Agile on it, I called them Agile Pills. I'll bet you we could sell those suckers for, maybe thousands of dollars. I don't know. Take one of these. Because when you talk about some of the scaling methods out there that involve no change.
Yeah.
I remember a company north of town that you and I were helping who does HVAC. One of our heat pumps comes from there. Thank you, heat pump manufacturer out of the Twin Cities. And there was somebody who was really resisting all the structural change we were talking about for Scrum. And they mentioned, scaled agile framework. And I'm like, what appeals to you about scaled agile framework? Because there's nothing small a agile,
Right.
There's nothing nimble, there's nothing that's gonna pivot, there's nothing in scaled agile framework that is agile. He said, well, the trainer showed us that diagram. Every single one of us in the room could see exactly where what we do right now, the way we do it right now, maps.
Yep.
I'm like, so let me see if I understand what you're saying.
What's the,
'Cause I'm a little
what's the
slow.
delta?
I'm a little slow. So you felt comfortable because what you heard was you didn't have to change a thing. And he said yes. And God bless it. The rest of the people in the room started losing it. They were laughing their asses off. And this poor guy's like, yeah, it means I don't have to change. And I'm like, then don't bother.
Right.
Why are you going to hand that company
Exactly.
tens
Save
of
your money.
thousands of dollars
Yep.
to have a word that says agile? I mean, come on. It's like,
It's crazy how some of them get trapped in that.
Mm.
They just get caught up and you just try to help folks not spend the money if they're not change.
Yeah.
Just say,
so scaling wars in the last 10 years, that's something new that I wouldn't necessarily put in the positive column
right.
unless we're talking about things that have been around more than 10 years,
So-
like large scale Scrum.
Where I was at when I first started with you, that was on my mind. And the first one that came out was safe, right? And I was like, at least somebody's at least covering because
It wasn't the first one that came out, large scale
First one
Scrum,
that's true, right? The
large
first one
scale
that you really
Scrum
heard
had
about,
been
right?
out there
Because
forever.
the picture, right? But I was like, at least somebody's thinking about how to spread this across an organization, right? Well, the organization I was at wasn't ready, and it wasn't willing, and I got religion, and so that turned into frustration. But you can only meet folks where they're at or half a step ahead, and you really have to either be okay with where you're at and that place going as fast as it wants to with this or not. And then you've got to make the choice. You stay and help change the ship, change ships, obviously change ships. But I think it's that picture. Picture doesn't lie.
Well, it's the
like
equivalent
pictures.
of the label on the jelly beans that says Agile Pills.
Exactly.
It's like,
It's,
I can be agile for just,
Groupthink gets so strong sometimes that we can't just take principles and values and figure out a way for us to do it, because that's the journey you have to take. And you just want the pill, you want the recipe, you want the easy one. But
there's a one.
there's
But you said the whole meet people where they're at, and God bless Ron Jeffries. I love Ron Jeffries. He said, if you meet people where they're at, and you leave them, they're going to be right where they were.
I'm in half a step ahead.
There you go, half a step ahead. Because growth, right? I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable, but you got to grow.
Absolutely. Growth doesn't come from comfort. All right, going back to the bowl, unless there's another question.
He is right on the board. I don't know what he was doing.
All right. People in Agile, not women, aliens, blah, blah, blah. People in Agile, not women, aliens, blah, blah, blah. You got this.
This
I
comes
don't
from
know.
somebody on our team. I get asked why I'm not more active in the Women in Agile groups, whatever. I wrote a piece back when the Scrum Alliance did a magazine for a little short time. There was a couple, Agile Box, I think it was called. And I wrote a piece on Women in Agile. And I leveraged some of my experience from when I used to sail. Happiest day of my life, when I bought my boat. Second happiest day is when
When
I
you
sold
sold
it.
it, yep,
And
heard that before.
and they would, and there's a women in sailing team, and God bless them. Great, good for you if that's your thing. I'm not taking anything away from that. But they kept saying, join our team, join our board, right? Board of directors. I'm like, no. They're like, why not? I'm like, why can't I be a sailor? Why do I have to be a woman sailing? Why can't I be a
Take
sailor?
gender out of it.
I'm out there playing with boys. I got my own, I've got a team we're putting together. And so that's the thing about Agile that drives me crazy, because nowhere in that manifesto did they say men. Even though a bunch of men wrote it, I'm not naive in that regard, but nowhere in those values and principles Does it say
Champion.
men?
Right.
Does
It says
it's
we.
people.
Yeah.
It's
We are.
people. So why do I need to go on my way to say, oh, I'm a woman in Agile, I'm an alien in Agile, I'm a boy in Agile, I'm a guy.
Right.
People, right? Why can't we just be Agilists? And so I'd rather that people recognize me as an Agilist,
Right.
right? If I helped them,
What you're talking to is merit,
right?
right? Merit types. You judged on the value you bring. Doesn't matter what race, sex, doesn't matter.
No, it
It's
doesn't
what you
matter.
bring.
Yeah.
Which is telling these times. Scrum Day in COVID land.
Oh, Jesus, my God.
Well,
Dave Knoll did this to us on our user group last month.
Like, so what about Scrum Day?
What about Scrum Day, Angela?
Well, with second wave and all that stuff, we had already started to think this way, but we're actually going to wait until 2021. We are canceling Scrum Day in 2020, just because there's other places that have gone virtual and there's other things out there. We didn't necessarily want to compete in that realm, so we had to let our keynote go. Let him know, but he's a friend of ours, so sorry, Joe. Somebody else says, what is Scrum Day? What is Scrum Day?
Scrum Day Minnesota, and I think there is something in the bowl about it, but I'm not sure. Scrum Day
Give him a rifle
Minnesota
through and pull it out.
is our way to bring the kind of greater Minnesota Scrum and Agile community together for a day. And the thing that's different about that particular event, because there's Agile Day, Twin Cities, and there's Scrum gatherings. And
Yeah,
all
why
this
would
other
they come to
stuff.
ours? So what? There's another Agile Day. We're all talking about Agile.
Yep.
Yeah.
The difference is other conferences ask people like us to submit talks, right? If you're a coach, a trainer, an author, a blah, 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 come and present, right? Scrum Day has always been opposite of that. It's always been our students, our
Clients.
graduates, our clients getting up and telling their own story.
And people like
Oh,
that
people love that.
because the best talks at our Scrum Day are the people that got up and said, here's if I could do it over, here's what I do different.
Or here's my success story.
Here's my success story, or it's but really the ones that get the most are the ones where the people talk about what they did wrong.
I know.
So,
Actually, Dave got some tough love last year, or 2 years ago for that, but when we've spoken at Scrum Day, because our team is always like, we're a last resort, right? Like if we can't get somebody willing to do it, or if somebody backs out, right? So our team is always we'll be filler, we'll fill in. But that's been the fun thing about Scrum Days. We'll throw a particular company on a panel, or a type of role in an organization on a panel, and let the audience just open Q&A. And so it's been really fun to do that. And the bummer with COVID is that we just don't feel like it's worth putting people at risk or putting the community at risk.
Right.
There's other ways that we can continue to stay connected. Our meetup is
Meetup,
virtual
right?
right now.
We virtual meetup
Yep.
every other month.
No, we're doing it every month.
Never mind, it's every month.
It's been every month.
Every month.
And it's been lean happy hour style, which is fun.
When's the next one?
July. I have to Ignite Agility. So if you go to meetup.com, Ignite Agility, maybe Rand can get the date for us, but we do have one coming up in July. But with Scrum Day Minnesota, I was talking to a recruiter who was there last year. And the other thing is, it's not a salesy conference.
Well, we don't let those, yeah.
We don't let
we
people
don't
do
want
that. And we're very
bunch of barrage
selective
with vendors and
about who we invite, because it is invitation only, to sponsor. And we get companies who are pissed at us when they say, but we're offering you sponsorship dollars. Why won't you take our money? It's like,
our gig.
it's not that kind of a conference.
Nope.
And
We only
people-
charge enough to pay for the thing
The
and,
bills,
The
and give
bills.
the rest to charity.
and sometimes we haven't had anything to give to charity, but we gave
But
it.
we kick in anyway.
July 13th, thank you, Rand.
July 13th, Ignite Agility Meetup. And I was talking to this recruiter who was like, well, why is this such a thing? Why do people love this conference? And so I shared all those reasons we just talked about. But he's like, so this is the vision you had when you started it. And I'm like, No, I started it because the other conference in town
Wouldn't
would
let
let me speak.
Fine, I'll take my call and go home.
Fine, I'm gonna go do it myself.
Home.
It's kind of the story of my life. But
We
and
need
he
another
was
hour and a half.
dumbfounded by that. He's like, you started this because somebody denied you a speaking spot.
Well, it happened how many years ago?
I know. So I'm like, screw you,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take my toys and go somewhere else. Screw you guys, I'm going home. So that's it about Scrum Day.
Jeffrey says thanks. Recent CSM.
Aw, you're welcome.
He's over
I know, I see the, well, no,
She shared the board,
but the
which is
board is there.
Can't
The note
believe
is
he
there.
went through there.
Hi, Jeffrey.
That's great. Hey.
You're the one who said I could do
I did.
it.
Now I'm regretting it.
Uh-oh.
I think it's your turn.
My turn.
The bowl.
The bowl. You ready?
I don't know.
It's a pretty widespread condition that's going around, and as far as I know,
Are we talking about COVID?
there's no vaccine yet. No, it's toolitis.
Toolitis.
There's no cream for that.
There's no cream for that.
There's no vaccination
You
for
want to put a
that.
salve on that? Toolitis. So tools can be helpful. I'm not saying tools are bad, but how many times have you gone somewhere to where, if you just look down the values and principles, or just, the pillars of Scrum, and you look at what they're doing and they're missing something, and you're like, why not? And the answer is, well, we couldn't figure out how to get the tool to do that. So then you just point to the first value of the Agile Manifesto, which is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So you're letting the tool dictate how you guys are supposed to grow in your evolution. So that's one. The other one is first place I coached with you, or first place I was a professional coach. 3-4 teams kicked off. All they had was post-it notes. They didn't have any tool. And then that company's another department of that company wanted to own the Agile adoption. They wanted to be the ones, and bless their heart, I guess I could say, they decided that if we're going to have multiple teams, we want to be able to roll up and see where the teams are at. And so they went out and found a tool, did tool evaluation and all that. But here's the weird part about it. Then they go to the people who've already established themselves without a tool and go, hey, if you're going to be an Agile Scrum team here, you got to use this tool.
Yeah.
They're like, why are you telling
Was
me
that
to
a
use a tool?
swears?
No, it was just a
Sign
gesture.
language?
That was some friends. But anyway, so they're like, why? So maybe a better way would be like, hey, now that we have all these Scrum teams here, we need to roll this much information up every sprint. I don't care how you get it to me. Let them solve it, right? But, oh, by the way, we bought a tool that some teams are using. So if you want to use that tool, roll it up, you can. But if you want to get it yourself, do it. That's the way you would hope it would happen.
Yeah.
But,
Hope is not a strategy.
hope is, you can hope in one hand and you know what in the other. What's going to fill up first, Randy?
So toolitis is a condition, and I always know somebody has it when they say silly things like, "This is the way Jira makes us."
Yeah. Can you give me
Makes
some
us
examples of how to do
do
this
it.
in Jira? I'm like, no,
No, I cannot.
that's your choice.
And it's like, let me get this straight. These little hands come out of your computer screen and grab you by the lapel and make you, literally, we've forgotten how to think for ourselves.
Yep.
And I can always tell a Jira user specifically, but I'm not picking on just Jira, I'll pick on all of them. I'm equal
I like to
opportunity.
say this one, Azure DevOps.
Well, whatever.
Love it.
right?
I need a
I'll equal opportunity, I'll pick on all of them. But I can tell Jira specifically, because they've removed the concept of a product backlog and a sprint backlog. And they have very specific uses. And when they commingle and morph all that, no wonder people are confused. So when people say things like the backlog, they don't say product backlog or sprint backlog. They don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
And everything's a story. And there's subtasks underneath tasks. I'm like, you're a Jira user. How'd you know that? I'm just that clairvoyant. It's like, we're not failing for new reasons. And the toolitis is getting worse, not better. It's more prevalent than
People are
COVID.
jumping on.
Oh my God,
There's money.
it's spreading faster than COVID. Well, that's just it. It's big business. And in some ways you could say, hypocrites, you're
Right.
celebrating your 10 years. And it's like, yeah, and I feel a little bit of responsibility in that. But where did it become so much about collecting the almighty dollar and not helping people make real change?
Right.
And that's where,
That gets back to, I guess if you were to go back to the first question, when we started to talk about partnership, like, what do you want to do? We want to be able to do something that we enjoy doing, that helps people, and we can afford the life we have. We weren't looking to be a huge company. We weren't looking
he
to
doesn't
take
live in
over
a
the world.
mansion, by the way.
I don't live in a mansion.
He drives a Ford truck.
I drive a Ford truck. So it's like, that's wealth, right? Going back to business ownership, and we're feeling it now, right? Like, in good times, we had some good years. We had nice years there for a while, but the hard times come with it too, right? So then it becomes, as a part of an owner of a company, you're going to share in that risk, and we're feeling it now. But we just wanted to do what we like to do, enjoy doing, and it helps other people, and it affords us the life that we have. That was the goal, and where that took us, where it was. We didn't have a fighting plan.
Well, and it was funny because this whole, now we've gone from Coleidas to COVID, but I was talking to a different training organization who shall remain nameless to protect the innocent in this case, but they were truly awestruck by how fast our team pivoted.
It's 2 days. We got ready in
and
2 days.
flipped to virtual.
Yep.
And it wasn't big bang.
Nope.
It was extremely iterative. The calendar dictated it to us
Pretty much, yeah.
because it was like,
You
here's
better get
what's
ready.
next, here's what's next, here's what's next. But this well-known author and educator on the phone with me said, how did you do that? And then I said, well, now I gotta sound like a Hair Club for Men commercial. I'm not just the owner, I'm also a client. It's like, we don't just talk about this Agile and Scrum
Right.
stuff. This is actually the way we work.
I'm saying we're awesome at it, but that's how we try to work.
And I'm like, so do you think I just, Agile, scrubby, scrum to all my students, but okay, we're really gonna do work this way. No. So we literally called it a board sprint, whatever the hell the goal was at the time, and said, the new goal is boom, 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 right? We have to
In
adapt.
friends terms, it's called pivot.
I know. Maybe we should start something new. We could make a lot of money if we started the pivot methodology.
Yes.
Pivot.
We have one story left and 8 minutes left on our time.
We have an hour.
He just gave me the sign.
He gave you the sign.
He gave me the 60 minutes sign. All right. Co-lead in the community.
Well, see, that's
Co-lead
what I was
in the
thinking.
community.
I think that's what I was thinking, like
Yeah.
Scrum Day,
Scrum Day.
our virtual meetup. The other thing that we've always done and not charge money for it or anything, was kind of as part of our pay it forward is, and one of my graduates was reminding me of this. I've not said no to a phone call with a graduate, or even before they were one of our students. And that's how hi Will, hope you're listening. And I got started talking.
Yeah.
It was between opportunities, and he was going to be coming through a CSM on the dislocated worker program, which we're an approved educator for. And so he's like, hey, the state's looking at sponsoring me to take your class, but I just want to know, because I've been out of work for 3 months, if I take this class, will I actually get a job? And are you willing to hop on the phone with me? Yeah. And we wound up talking for quite a while, came to a class, and after the class, I shared, recruiters that I know in town with him, shared some companies that I saw postings at. We're not charging them for that time, but lo and behold, he got a job 2 weeks later, and that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, right? It's like, I was so happy to help that person. And not saying no to our graduates, especially not right now. Anybody who's come to one of the virtual classes, I'm like, oh, guys, this sucks, right? It sucks for me just as much as it sucks for you. So I can give you 30 minutes of my time.
Sure.
I can give you a call or, some one-on-one time. It's a
We don't
small
have
thing I can do.
We've been offered 30 minutes, because if something doesn't get answered during the virtual class. One thing cool about virtual though is you do get to see people. You get to see them in their home environment. And, had a lady whose cat came up and her tail just went straight up. So I'm looking at the monitor and she's like, puts the tail down, the tail goes back up. Another lady has her son standing over her shoulder. I'm like, hey, so there's your guy. And he's like, yeah, he's helping mom. Like, yeah, that's what I used to say to my mom. And she's like, yeah, really helping. I'm like, that's what my mom used to say. But that is the cool part of this, is that it gets people in their own environments. And, you really realize, at least we're lucky to see that we're more alike than we are different. It really is. It doesn't matter where people are from. We're more connected than we are different than I think what we're seeing on TV these days. But I was going to ask one question before we close. What is your hope? What is your hope for the future? Where do you want this to go? Not the company. Well, you could say company, but you could just say industry. You could take whatever trend. But like, if you had, like, in the next 3 years, what would you hope for?
Honestly, I would hope for organizations actually changing for the better, actually pivoting.
Yeah.
No more fake Agile.
Right.
No more fake Scrum. Oh, I know. I'm sorry. You prefer Gila. No
But
more
that's
fake
French.
nonsense.
Yep.
Just honestly, listen to your customers. Can you do the right thing? Can you turn on a dime for a dime?
Yep.
Can you stop saying resources? Stop saying resources
Those
for
are people.
people. That's what I would like. I would love it if people actually tried it instead of
If you would ask me
phoning
that
it in.
question, I would say I'd like us to stop talking about Agile and Scrum altogether.
Oh, for sure.
I would just like us to be able to be, business agility consultants. Are you solving? Are you relying on the problems you agree are the biggest problems you should be solving? Because we can all solve problems. I don't care how old your company is, how new it is. If your company's open, you're doing something. So you must have the right people underneath your roof or in your walls or on the payroll that are helping you stay alive. I always say in the classes, drive by a cemetery. There's a lot of people that are having problems. So if you got problems, you're alive. If you want to shut them down, close the company.
Right.
Problems are gone. Problems are part of life. So which one of those? Are we aligned on which ones? And do we think we can solve those the way we're working or not? If we can't, then let's look at changing. If we can, then let's keep going. And let's talk. And because think about back in the 90s, you would get like Microsoft certified Mortar, who does that?
Nobody.
So then it becomes, right, does it just become the way that we should actually, it's a human movement. We should work this way.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of all the terms, are we working in a way that's getting us to move the needle that we want to move or not? And if it's not, then let's expect it to have to change. That's my hope, is that we just are able to teach or help people get through help people solve their problems, not solve them for them.
Well, but you said stop saying Agile and Scrum because it's easier done
Yeah.
than said. And we're fortunate enough to have a lot of customers who really did make the change. They are gracious enough to throw open their doors and share their stories and to talk to people. And I remember when George Bell spoke at Scrum Day a number of years ago now, but he brought his product owners and Scrum Masters and threw them on that
That
panel.
was cool.
And the
That
whole
was a
audience
cool
just
panel.
went at him.
Yep.
And I asked as the moderator, I said, what struck you all about what just happened? And somebody said, they never said Agile or Scrum in any of their answers.
Yeah, and it didn't matter who answered. It didn't matter who answered the question.
Yeah.
You could just tell the theme, the
Yeah.
values, the principles were there.
Yeah.
And they all said it in their own words.
Yeah.
But you could tell that team was
Yeah.
aligned. And then look at places like Novatech and they're just flying.
Yeah.
We can't even send people to Novatech anymore to tour because it's going to screw people up. They're that far. It's like sending somebody to go watch martial arts punch a hole in a cinder block.
But from
You can't
the
do it.
leadership on down, it's permeated through their culture.
Absolutely.
They want that talk, they
They
live
do.
it, they're
They're
servant
very-
leaders, they believe in all this.
Entrepreneur company. So
Mm.
we are 30 seconds away from time, Rand. Is there any other question on the board? Well,
Well, all right.
thanks a lot for
Well-
joining. I appreciate the people saying hi. I appreciate the folks who
We're
did
gonna
ask
cheers.
us some questions.
We're gonna give a stainless steel plank.
We're gonna give us, here's my shout out to Armstrong Cooper. That's someplace out there, so we'll give them a little care. But thanks so much. Please have a happy and safe 4th of July. Please come by and see us at Weston Conference Center and take care.
Bye-bye.